there's always a lot of intrigue in terms of the receiver position. It's kind of interesting to stack this group up against last year. I'm not sure we're quite as high on this year's group compared to the 2022 class, but some good receivers, different types of receivers as well. Before we get into the actual players within Headley and Drew's top 10, respectively, here's a quick look at our NFL draft prospect grading scale. Again, 1 to 10, obviously, a 1 is not what you want to see on the field. Any player getting a grade of 1 isn't an NFLer. They're one of us, to be perfectly frank. So, with that being said, we move on to number 10. And Headley, you have Michael Wilson from Stanford, and Drew, you have Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. And I want to start with you, Drew. Some people may feel that you're a bit too low on Jalen Hyatt, considering, I mean, he put up huge numbers, monstrous numbers this past season. He certainly makes your top 10, but why so low within the top 10?
He's 6 foot, 176. He's a highlight reel, man. And people love to fall in love with speed and big plays and all of that. But what does that look like when I put a corner in front of him and he has to be pressed? What does that look like? Because I know he can catch the football. I know he can break away. I know he's nice in space. But if I close in that space, can he make me a contested catch? Can he, if he's challenged, what does that look like? Because we know in college football, that's not a thing, right? People scared of the speed. You know what I'm saying? People couldn't figure out what the hell Tennessee was doing, i.e. Alabama, i.e. somewhat of South Carolina, right? i.e. Florida. Like they couldn't figure it out. So is he a one-trick pony? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, man. So I wouldn't quite put him there because I believe he has the abilities. Just that the guys in front of him, the 9 in front of him, have shown me more, right? But Jalen Hyatt's done everything that he's been asked to do in terms of the role that he plays within that Tennessee offense. But I'm a little nervous, right? Because I liken him a little bit to Josh Downs in terms of, you know, the speed, in terms of the playmaking big ability. But Josh Downs showed me some things this season that made me absolutely have him higher than what Jalen Hyatt is right now.
I'll say this before you get in there, Headley, regarding Michael Wilson, your 10th ranked receiver. There really was very limited production going into this season from Jalen Hyatt, right? Cedric Tillman was the lead dog. Of course, with the injury, with the advent of the offense that they were deploying, and then Hooker playing at a very high level, and then Hyatt's speed, his game-breaking speed, he blew up, right? Huge season, double-digit touchdowns. I mean, couldn't be stopped. Concern about the things that you haven't seen. One thing that I think collectively, and it helps, or at least you can lean on that to separate guys that are close, right? I haven't seen it. Doesn't mean that they can't do it. It doesn't mean that, right? It's something that you have to. It's kind of a fine line that you're walking here. We don't want to necessarily punish a player for not demonstrating something if he wasn't asked to do it, he wasn't put in position to do it. And then your point regarding the lack of press at the collegiate level, I'd say there's a lack of it at the professional level as well. You know, regardless, teams are scared. Opposition, they're scared of speed. They're terrified of it. And with all the rules favoring the receivers, it used to be a much higher uh, evaluation point for me, a much more significant evaluation point for me. But these days, you know, the you can do the releases, right? You can do the bunches. You can use motion. You understand what I'm saying? If you're thinking about him as being just a traditional X, I can understand your concern there. But I mean, you can move him around, man. You can make certain things happen. So that's just kind of my counterpoint to what you have not seen thus far. All right, Ellie. What about Michael Wilson?
Yeah, Michael Wilson's a guy that showed up, showed out at the Senior Bowl, and I got to admit, I watched a little bit of Michael Wilson before the Senior Bowl, and I wasn't nothing really stood out. He wasn't that impressive to me. I saw him against Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez was a hip pocket. That is the best corner in the nation, so I get it. You're not going to really separate from a Christian Gonzalez, but when I saw him at the Senior Bowl, the 6'2", the twitchiness, he made plays down the field, was physical. Just the route running ability, it was just impressive for a guy his size. So, you know, he's wide receiver 10 for me because of what he did in the Senior Bowl. You know, and again, that game against Christian Gonzalez, the pass game timing with Stanford was off. I think all season long, they were trying to do that slow mesh. They couldn't really get in sync, Tanner McKee and Michael Wilson. So, you know, I don't put it all on Michael Wilson. The only thing I put on him is he has to stay on the field. You know, availability, you know, he got to be dependable, got to be out there. He's more games than he played in his collegiate career. So if he can just stay healthy and use that quick twitch ability at his size. I could see him as an inside receiver, outside receiver. I could see him all over the football field.
Yeah, we really, really encourage you to check out our video on the channel as Couch Potato General Manager featuring Michael Wilson. We've said it before on this particular program and previous editions of this program that start to finish, he had the best week at the Senior Bowl. And there were some quality receivers there, right? You had Rashee Rice, Jonathan Mingo, Tank Dell, Jaden Reed. There's some really good players that were at the Senior Bowl. And again, start to finish, Michael Wilson had the best week among all the wide receivers. So to your point, he's been out of sight, out of mind because of an extensive injury history. He hasn't yet to play a full season. As you mentioned, Headley, he's missed more games than he's played. That is certainly working against him, but a talented player nonetheless. All right, let's move on to your ninth ranked receiver. And I mentioned Jaden Reed, Headley, Michigan State. He too was at Mobile, and he was very impressive. He wasn't quite as ballyhooed as perhaps Tank Dell and Michael Wilson based on those one-on-one performances, but I thought Reed had a really good week.
Yeah, another guy that dominated at the Senior Bowl all week long. It just looked easy for Jaden Reed. The easy speed, his ability to win deep with his route running ability. And what really stood out to me, especially in season, was his ability at his size to win those 50-50 balls, make those contested catches, because they're going to knock him on his size at the next level because he's not a bigger guy. But if you can win above the rim, it doesn't matter, man. It's a guy that came out last year that, I thought we all loved was Jahan Dotson. Dotson, not a 6 foot plus guy, but he could win above the rim and he uses his speed really well. So I see Jaden Reed in that kind of caliber. We're going to see, man, with
That
Jaden Reed.
caliber or that type of player?
That type of player.
Okay.
Definitely have Dotson higher, but I can see it. I see glimpses of it, and it comes really easy to Jaden Reed.
Yeah, Jake, that's a great point. Quarterback play definitely hurt Jaden Reed. As you can see here, his 2021 stat line is substantially better, right? I mean, it's night and day compared to what happened in 2022. But again, I think with a strong week during the Senior Bowl and of course that 2021 tape, he's a player that I feel most folks are too low on, right? I don't know. Actually, I do know. He doesn't quite make Drew's list here. Instead, you go with Parker Washington. Drew, what do you like about Parker Washington out of Penn State?
Goes up and gets the football, much like Headley was talking about in terms of playing above the rim. No fear of the middle of the field. Very good in the scramble drill. I have here, when I see that, when I say very good in the scramble drill, I got KC here for Kansas City. For those Kansas City fans out there, it might be a good fit for you guys. Sits in the holes of the defense in the zone. He's a calculated, patient route runner. Can turn bad balls into good balls. Strong hands. Works well in small spaces. Can throttle up and down. And he offers that punt return ability, man. And he's from I'm not going to say a long line of Penn State receivers, but we talk about Allen Robinson, we talk about a Chris Godwin, we talk about a Deshaun Hamilton, we talk about a KJ Hamler, we talk about a Jahan Dotson.
Hamilton.
I got to throw them all in there, bro. I'm just throwing them all in there. I'm just grab everybody in the last couple of years and throw them all in there. I think we have most years in there. So he's just kind of
you gotta go back further, man. You gotta get you an OJ McDuff. You gotta get you a Bobby Ingram.
Yeah, I see him. I got a Joe Jaravicious. We can go deep. You know what? A Gary Heyman.
Right.
You know what I mean? We can do it. But yeah, he's just a part of that line of those receivers. Penn State's kind of been pumping him out here lately, so I think he's another guy. I know most people aren't talking about him. When I first watched him, I really liked him, and he's kind of just stuck around in terms of my top 10 receivers.
All right. We move on to the 8th ranked receiver in Headley and Drew's respective top 10. And Headley, you have Jalen Hyatt. Drew, you have his teammate Cedric Tillman. I'll start with you, Drew. Cedric Tillman, your thoughts on him? Obviously, he missed a chunk of the seasons. His numbers weren't necessarily as good as his 2021 numbers, as you can see below. And Hyatt stole the show. What do you like about Tillman? Why are you higher on Tillman than Hyatt?
Because I think he has the ability to be the complete receiver. When you talk about, I know the last pod we had, someone was asking about having an X receiver. I think what team was that for? Was that Texans?
Texans, it was.
Yeah, we went ahead and got Cedric Tillman in there in terms of playing the X. Has the ability to be a big play threat on the perimeter. Ability to track the ball down the field, make contested catches, productive for back-to-back seasons. Although, like you spoke about, he was hurt last year. He still was productive, still big part of that offense. And and he has strong hands, and he can win at the top of the route, man, creating that separation that you want. I know a lot of people, like you said, Jalen Hyatt. That is, when you think about the Tennessee offense outside of Hendon Hooker, you're thinking about Jalen Hyatt because he's the highlight reel. But I'm thinking about the more complete player in Cedric Tillman.
Headley, Hyatt, from your perspective, what do you like about him, and why is Drew too low on him?
Just what he could do in the offense, in the right system, in the right scheme. You talked about the Chiefs earlier. Imagine if this guy plays with Andy Reid and Andy Reid's ability to move guys around. Jalen Hyatt, he just wins vertical. He can stretch the field. We always talk about those guys that can stretch the field, a la Deshaun Jackson, where he just makes it easier for everybody else. You might need two on him, so it's going to open up one-on-ones for your tight end, for your X receiver, because I think Hyatt, that Z receiver, move him around, get him vertical, and he's exceptional at tracking the football down the field. It's like you can't really overthrow Hyatt. Just launch it out there. He'll track the football, and it's probably going to be 6. His coming out party was against Alabama. He really showed out after Cedric Tillman went down, so he stole the show, and he's my wide receiver 8.
We move on to receiver 7. Got this one right. Quentin Johnston. Now, folks are going to see this, and they're going to think you guys are entirely too low on Quentin Johnston. Big play receiver out of TCU. Explain it to me. Why isn't he higher in your top 10?
A couple reasons. The route tree, he's really even goes and hitches, out there at TCU. Also, he drops some passes, a lot of passes that he should catch. Just a concentration. You got to secure the football at the next level. Another thing, Big 12. I'm not going to lie, man. These Big 12 receivers, it's a track record of them not performing at the next level. With his limited route tree, dropping the passes, playing in that Big 12 offense, that all hurts his projection. But talk about yards after the catch with him. Beast. Just get the ball in his hands. It was, I forgot the game when he was his coming out show this season where they used him everywhere, vertically, in the slot, across the middle, tracks the football really well. He could go up and get it. He wins those 50-50 balls. So oozing with talent, just a little raw right now. That's why he's that wide receiver 7.
Drew, I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak on Quentin Johnston. Your thoughts on the TCU receiver, and why is he lower in your rankings? And when I say that, I'm comparing it to the consensus. I think the consensus
Right.
has Quentin Johnston higher.
Yeah, I mean, Headley talked about in terms of his inconsistency, in terms of catching the football, in terms of being involved in the offense. He is a guy who will disappear from time to time, and I'm not talking about from half to half. I'm talking about from game to game, right? So he's a guy I think you just have to continue to pepper and get balls to him, otherwise he may disappear, right? Headley talked about in terms of his route limitation. Now, I will say this: in terms of his route tree was limited. But with the routes he did run, I thought he was very adept at running those routes. Working the blind spots, essentially playing off the anticipation of defenders. He has good big frame and size, and I think that's what's going to that's size and frame and speed is going to save him. Even though he's inconsistent, that's something that teams are going to look at and say, yeah, we can fix that. You know what I'm saying? Or teams are going to, one of the big things, not to compare them to, but when we talk about size and we're talking about speed, we could be talking about DK. You know what I'm saying, in terms of his limitations, in terms of what he can do, and we kind of see what he is now, and he's a solid receiver. You know what I mean? He wasn't inconsistent, so that's still a concern in terms of Johnston, but he's a big play guy, and he can make things happen. You talk about the game earlier this year with Johnston. We can go back to Oklahoma the year before. I mean, that was a highlight reel in itself. The whole game, just him lighting them guys up. Didn't matter who the DB was, who the safety was, man. So just I don't know, man. Inconsistency for me is big at any position. To be honest. So he takes a little bit of a hit for me there.
I understand. Speaking about the route tree, and we all saw the same thing on tape, right? As far as it being limited, what they asked him to do was limited. Got a couple film grinders that obviously we respect their work, Jake as well as DP Damian Parsons for the Draft Network. The thought process, at least from DP's perspective, is that part of the reason why that route tree is limited is because of the quarterback play, right? Max Duggan had some limitations, so they focused on what he did well, which ultimately limited what Quentin Johnston did. So just something to kind of consider, to juxtapose against your analysis based on what you're seeing on film, because yes, he did not run the full route tree. Was that because he simply could not run other routes, or was that a byproduct of of some of the issues they had at the quarterback position. So
And,
just food for
and,
thought.
and to jump on a little bit on that, like I spoke about earlier, the routes he ran, they were nice. You know what I mean?
Right.
They were good. You know what I'm saying? I think he's a smart football player. So, that can only catapult him in terms of other routes that he didn't get a chance to run, enough of. So I think he'll be fine in terms of that. But it's always something to, nitpicking out here in terms of the route limitation.
All right. We are at the true receiver 6 here. Of course, we talked about what appeared to be receiver 6. That was actually receiver 8. You have Rashee Rice, Headley, as your 6th ranked receiver. Drew, you have Josh Downs. You alluded to Josh Downs earlier. Headley, I want to start with you. Rashee Rice, your thoughts on a very physical wideout out of SMU.
Yeah, you stole the words right out my mouth, man. Just physical in every aspect of the game, whether it be run blocking, whether it be after the catch ability to break tackles, at the catch point, those 50-50 balls. And he has plus athleticism. He can play inside, outside. He kind of grouped with Quentin Johnson a bit, where the route running I think is a little bit of a question mark, but just the athletic gifts and the yards after the catch and the big play. If he gets into offense more, spread it out and wide receiver screens, getting the ball quickly, I think he could be very explosive at the next level.
Okay. And Drew, Josh Downs, your thoughts on receiver out of UNC?
Yeah, this man a baller, man. He's to me, he's arguably
too low, man.
Too
too
low
low.
on him. Too low on him.
Arguably, he's the best slot receiver in the country. I don't know, JSN. People gonna argue me that's fine. Too low just because of his size, man. I'm a ding him. I got him. I'm a ding him, man. I gotta ding him for that. But he's a blur. You want to talk about Jalen Hyatt? This is a more refined, better receiver in terms of a speedy, smaller receiver. Like I said earlier, my concern with Hyatt is that press. Well, that was my concern with Josh Downs coming into the season. I needed him to check that box for me, and he was out there checking that box consistently. He's got moves and ways to get by DBs that want to press. He has this little hitch in his game in terms of his route running. I don't think it's not normal in terms of his way to throttle up, throttle down, and separate from DBs, linebackers, safeties, whomever it is. But he is able to create separation, and he was the linchpin of that UNC offense.
And you know what's interesting is that, as you can see here, he put up huge numbers in 2022, and those receptions and yardage totals are actually down. He was over 100 receptions in 2021 and 1,300 yards in 2021. So, your boy, Sam Howell, was hitting him up. Drake May spread it out a little bit more, but
He was
Downs
hurt. He
is
missed
legit.
some games too.
That's true.
He was hurt.
He
So
did.
yeah.
He did miss a little run here. I do want to respond to D-Kid's comment here regarding Rashee Rice. I thought so as the week progressed. I had very, very high expectations for Rashee Rice, and I think he had a good week. He didn't have a great week. I think early in the week, perhaps through the first practice and a half, he seemed a little unsure of himself. He wasn't playing with the typical physicality that we see on film. But by the time we got to the one-on-ones on day 2 and throughout the remainder of the week in Mobile, I thought he started to look like himself. He started to kind of assert himself. So I don't think he hurt himself, but I thought Rashee Rice was actually going to push himself up the board even more, right? And I'm not sure that he did quite that, but I really like the player. And as Headley mentioned, get him in the right system. I think he's going to do damage at the next level. All right, we move on to your 5th ranked receiver here. And Headley, you have Zay Flowers, and Drew has Michael Wilson. And I want to start with Drew because, Headley, you had Michael Wilson at 10. One of the major concerns there, obviously, being the fact that he hasn't played a lot of football. He has a very long injury history. Drew doesn't seem to be quite as concerned, right? And having that opportunity to see him up close and personal in Mobile, interview him again. Check out that video on the channel, Couch Potato General Manager. Why has Michael Wilson overtook so many receivers for you, Drew?
Bruh, that brother smooth, man. Let me see if I can find one in my notes. I got it right here. Can create separation in many ways, whether that be conniving in terms of his route running,
Yo.
whether that's smooth or whether that's twitchy. And at the end of the day, your job is to do a couple of things as a receiver: block, catch, and separate. And he can do all of those things. Now, obviously, like you spoke about in terms of injury, I spoke to him and he said, man, that the only thing that they're looking for is for me to stay healthy because his game is legit. It's real. It's the real deal. He's the entire package in terms of the receiver position. There's nothing that he can't do from the position outside of stay healthy. That's all we need you to do, brother. That's it. Is stay healthy and you can be dominant in the league, man. Go up and get the football, breaking people off like Kit Kat bars, contested catches. He's the entire package, man. But I'm gonna ding him because you got to stay healthy, brother. Got to stay healthy.
I don't think that's a ding, man.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
don't think I don't think the ranking that you have for him is a ding.
He could be
Right?
higher though. You know what I mean?
Perhaps
Health,
if we got a chance to see more of him, perhaps.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
But yeah, that to me that's a bullish ranking on Michael Wilson, considering the fact that he has an extensive injury risk. That there isn't a ton of production, but when you think about projecting him, what he does well as a route technician, the fact that he'll mix it up, he'll come down and block a linebacker, block a safety, and his football IQ is off the charts. Right, it truly is. Again, having an opportunity to speak to him, get a sense of how he prepares and who he's preparing with. You know what I mean? He patterns his game after the Keenan Allens of the world, and then TJ Hushmanzada is training him. So he works hard at his craft, and hopefully he stays injury free. Headley, you have Zay Flowers, explosive Zay Flowers, as your fifth ranked receiver. Why?
You said it, explosiveness. He's the most explosive wide receiver in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the best wide receiver in this draft because what he possesses, man, all season long, man. I'm an ACC guy, man, and he's just big play Zay. I was yelling all season, big play Zay. He's balling, and he didn't get the love really until after the season. At the Shrine game, those one-on-ones, and that's when he started getting love. I think he's probably the biggest riser out of any receiver in this class. I think Drew has a surprise later for him, but yeah, just the explosiveness horizontally, vertically, just his ability to separate. His separation skills is top notch in this class, and yeah, big play Zay is my wide receiver 5.
D kid, no, Michael Wilson look big. He possesses the size. That's he's all of 6'2", 213. He is. He's got really good size. There aren't a ton of big receivers in this class. He's one of the bigger ones. Definitely is one of the bigger ones. Let's move on to receiver 4 here. And Hadley, I'm gonna start with you. It's your guy, Josh Downs. And
Yeah.
Drew actually has Rashee Rice as his fourth ranked receiver. So if we go back to receiver 6, you have these flipped. Hadley, you have Rice. Drew, you have Downs. In this case, at receiver 4. Hadley, you prefer Downs. Drew, Rice. Hadley, your thoughts on Josh Downs?
Yeah, I think Downs, even though he's 4 for me, he's probably my favorite receiver in the class. Just watching his tape last year, he was the one guy coming into 2022 where I was like, he's a short thing. You know what I'm saying? I watched. We talked about Jordan Addison a little later, but I wasn't that convinced in Jordan Addison last season, even though the big stats. But with Josh Downs, I was convinced as soon as I laid eyes on him. Just the route pace. Drew's talking about his route running ability, and it's his pace. He go inside, outside. He could fake inside, come back outside, fake short, go deep. He kind of lulls guys to sleep. It's just very twitchy. And for a small guy, he can make plays, contested catches. He goes up and get the ball. He's just a dog, man. And if you watch North Carolina this year, it was Drake May. It was every down, every third down. We knew the ball was going to Josh Downs. It didn't matter. He's a one-on-one nightmare at the next level. You got to be able to separate, win those one-on-one matchups. And yeah, I think Downs could be a 100-catch guy at the next level.
All
Always
right,
open.
Always open.
Facts.
7-11, 24/7.
Yep.
Drew, you got Rashee Rice. This was receiver 1 entering the 2022 season for you, man. This was the guy, all right?
All right.
And he doesn't quite make receiver 1 after another full year of evaluation, but he does land in your top 4. What do you like about Rashee Rice?
Big, physical, strong playmaker with the ball in his hands. Can play both inside, outside. Create separation with physicality. Super productive. Obviously we talked about in terms of the limited route tree. He's got some concentration drops he's got to work on. Again, like you had spoke about earlier in terms of him kind of catapulting himself in the Senior Bowl, we were all kind of expecting that's what we wanted from him. We didn't quite see that. I think he was trying to play. I don't know if he was trying to play a different game, trying to show some different set of skills. But I think he just needs to stick to what he is, which is a physical receiver that can create separation with his physicality, man. And so, you don't have too many bigger receivers that can catch the ball and make things happen with it. But and listen, he got some Steve Smith in his game, bro. He will block somebody into the rafters, and he's about that life, bro. If that's a guy you really want to mess with out there, he got some Steve Smith in him. I don't know if I don't know if
You
you want
know,
to mess with that guy,
you
bro.
don't want those problems.
Nah,
I see D Kid is eyeing a larger receiver to add to that Giants receiving corp, and I
amen to
like
that.
the likes of Cedric Tillman. He asked about Michael Wilson and his stature. He fits the bill. He
Yep.
fits the bill. He can be an X for you. And then of course Cedric Tillman. I think Cedric Tillman would be perfect fit at the X in New York. So there's a few options. There's a few options. The guy I like a little bit later. Unfortunately, he did not make Drew or Headley's top 10, but I
Mingo.
think he's rising. Is definitely my guy, Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah,
I
yep.
like him. I
I
like him.
was
Yeah.
mad I didn't get him in my 10. I was mad.
It's hard, man. Some guys aren't gonna quite get in there. So, but yeah. What I do love about Rashee Rice is the mentality. When he is locked in, he takes the fight. He takes the fight to the opposition, to those defensive backs. So really like both these players here, Josh Downs and Rashee Rice. We move on to receiver 3. And Headley, when we talk about guys that you kind of planted your flag on, Drew's guy had been Rashee Rice. You've been in the Cedric Tillman camp all year, long before Jalen Hyatt burst on the scene. You've held steadfast, even as Hyatt his star rose. You have him as your receiver 3, and Drew, you have Jordan Addison as your third ranked receiver. I want to start with you. What do you like so much about Tillman?
Yeah, it was a 2021 tape. When I watched him, like I said earlier, Downs stood out to me, and Tillman, he was my wide receiver 3 from last year. And I know he got hurt this year, but I couldn't move him off that spot because he didn't do anything to hurt his stock other than getting hurt. His ability to win deep, stack receivers, his ability to at the top of his routes, cut back, come back on the hits, come back on the comeback. He just sells that deep ball so well. He's physical after the catch, and also those 50-50 balls is 80-20 for Tillman. The timing, the body control. I fall in love with these receivers like, Mike Williams, T. Higgins,
Mhm.
and that kind of
Those are your
mold, man.
guys. Those are your
My
guys.
guys, man. And
Yeah.
Cedric Tillman is one of those guys as well. Prototypical X receiver. I think he come in right away and start. I think people are too low on him, and I think he's going to have a successful NFL career.
All right. Drew, tell me about Jordan Addison, the 2021 Bolitnikoff Award winner. Obviously, 2022 wasn't as big from a statistical standpoint, but he's your third ranked receiver.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And listen, it's nice to see a guy go from one team to the next team and is able to still produce and be that same receiver, right? Or maybe he added a little bit more juice in terms of USC, in terms of the way they used him there. But like you spoke about him coming from Pittsburgh, from an NFL quarterback and Kenny Pickett to probably the number one pick come this year, and Caleb Williams, and him still being able to produce and be what he is, which is he's great in short area quickness, can create the separation that you want from the position, and he can make things happen with the ball in his hands, man. Plays a little punt return, a little special teamer as well. So I think he's a big play waiting to happen. I love me some Jordan Addison. I didn't really, even though he was a Blitnikoff Award winner coming out of Pittsburgh, he was probably around 8, 9-ish for me. But as he played for USC, kind of rose in the ranks, showed me a little bit more ability. And, so I had to, push him up the ranks.
Yeah, and of course he missed a few games this
And he
season.
did. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and I think the injury may have slowed him down a bit more towards the end of the season coming back from it. It appeared like it may have ended his season, the severity of it when you watched it live, but he was able to return. I don't know that he ever was the same player in season. So a healthy
Right.
Jordan Addison is a problem. Definitely. There's no question about it. He was on pace to basically shatter the numbers that he was putting up, that he put up during his Bolitnikoff award-winning season in Pittsburgh. All right. We move on to receiver 2, and we have a consensus. It is none other than Jackson Smith and Jigba. As you can see here, I didn't even put up his 2022 stats because, I mean, I think it was what, 5 catches over the course of 3 games. Obviously, an injury marred season. His 2021 season was phenomenal. And on the strength of that, you both have him ranked as the second ranked receiver in the class, top two. Drew, why are you so bullish on JSN, even though you didn't really get a chance to see him in 2022?
Strong hands, big playability with the ball in his hands. You could watch the championship game with Utah, and it was a highlight reel. The man couldn't be stopped. Didn't matter who the corner was, linebacker, safety. One of the things I wanted to see this year, obviously, Brandon Joseph, you did this. It's your fault. Is to see him play more outside. But if he's going to play in the slot, he's going to be a dominant player in the slot with his ability to create separation from him and whoever it is that's covering him, man. He's a big play waiting to happen, man.
Garrett Wilson was being generous. Garrett Wilson was the best of the bunch, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. But I
would agree.
respect JSN's game. Absolutely.
Right.
Headley, what about you?
Yeah, JSN. I think the anticipation coming into this year. There was no Garrett Wilson, no Olave, so everyone's anticipating JSN. It's your show. I know you had Marvin Harrison Jr. there as well, who's probably better than all those guys. But but he didn't play. He got hurt in the first game against Notre Dame. Brandon Joseph knocked him out, and 2022 was a lost season. But when you go back and watch that 2021 tape, just the savviness in his route running. There's a physicality to the top of his route. He'll go across the middle, catch contested passes. And it's just everything looks the same. When you have a receiver, you don't have to be 4.2, 4.3. We talked about the combine numbers and how fast you are, but when everything looks the same, it's just so hard for DBs to know, is he running it in? Is he going out? Is he going to double move? Like you never know with JSN. And I was so surprised with not surprised, but went back to 21 tape and the yards after the catch ability. So the speed concerns that people had for him, I didn't really have those concerns because on the football field, he has that football speed. So wide receiver 2 for me.
All right. On the strength of the 2021 tape, JSN comes in at number 2. This comes as no surprise because there really is no consensus number 1 in this class when you think about it at large. We had the cornerback conversation. We had the running back conversation. Bijan, Christian Gonzalez. In this case, you guys are split at number 1 for receiver. Headley, you have Jordan Addison, and Drew, you have Zay Flowers. So smaller receivers, but a big play waiting to happen here. Headley, I'm going to start with you. Drew talked about Jordan Addison. He has him as his third-ranked receiver. You have him as a top receiver overall. Why is that?
I think he's a nuanced route runner. I think he's versatile. I think he wins short, intermediate, deep, and also I think he's one of the few receivers in this class. I think he played all 3 wide receiver positions, whether the X, the Z, the Y. He could do it all, man. When you watched him at Pittsburgh, it was a lot of vertical stuff with him, and that's why I said I had a hesitation in his game. Like, okay, you're one-on-one with linebacker safeties. You're winning vertical. You're winning with your speed. You put big numbers. You won a Biletnikoff award, but at USC, I saw a different Jordan Addison. I saw the release game was on point, the route running. He's not that big, so some teams, Blue Kelly for Stanford got a little physical with him. But when Blue Kelly missed because of his release, it was night, man. It was 6 points. So, that's why I have Jordan Addison, just the route running. He could stack you deep. He could win on all 3 levels and play all 3 wide receiver positions.
There's something about Zay Flowers, Drew. There's something about him. You indicated that in our last or one of our previous second half draft shows. She Rice was the guy, man, and then he wasn't. Then there was a Zay Flowers. Why is Zay Flowers top receiver for you?
Headley said it earlier. Big play Zay, man. Big play Zay, man. He gonna get downfield. He's gonna track the ball well, create separation between him and the defender. And if I told you was getting Calvin Ridley in terms of a route runner, I think he's pristine, precise. I think he can stop on a dime, give you 9 cents change if you like, man. A couple of pennies and nickels in there for you, right? I don't think there's anything he can't do at the position. I wish he was a little bit bigger, right? Because I did ding Josh Downs, right, for the height, right? But I think Zay Flowers is the complete package. I think Josh Downs is a bona fide superstar slot, but I think Zay Flowers can play anywhere, any position in terms of the receiver position that you want him to play, man. So
there it is. Say
Big play
Flowers, number
Zay.
one for Drew. Big play Zay. We did get a question here, and I do want to unpack it. Actually, there's two questions I want to ask. So before I get to D-Kit's inquiry, I do want to talk a little bit about the guys who didn't make the list, right? For our viewers, they may feel, more strongly about the likes of a Marvin Mims and A.T. Perry, a Tank Dell, Jonathan Mingo, again, is climbing up boards.
Mm-hmm.
There's Charlie Jones. There's quite a few receivers that I think can certainly come in and contribute relatively early in their careers. Who among that group do you feel is just kind of just outside of your top 10?
I have two guys. We put them in our grading system, and whatever
Yep.
score spits out, what the score spits out. But
Yep.
uh, Jonathan Mingo was a 6.9 for me. I love his physicality, contested catches. He could win deep. I think he can win in a plethora of ways. And the other guy was Marvin Mims from Oklahoma. Just the speed, the versatility to win deep, and for his size, man, he's real feisty. So I think Mingo and Marvin Mims are the two
And
guys that just
Marvin
missed my top
Mims.
10. Yeah.
Yep. DK, that's another one there, Tyler Scott, and I'm sure people are going to be higher on. What about you, Drew?
Muted? No, I'm not muted. I just want to make sure I wasn't muted. Marvin Mims, I'm gonna echo that. He's definitely, I was kind of battling him. Like, can I slip him in here? I just couldn't get him in there. And then another guy for me was Kayshon Boutte, man. When you watch the good tape of Kayshon Boutte, he's a top 10 receiver, no questions asked, man. You know what I'm saying? Top 5 probably, but I can't do it. I mean, this season was abysmal.
Abysmal.
I mean, you only had to check a couple of boxes, brother, which was just play. Let's just see what you did last year. Let's see a repeat, and attitude concerns. I don't like to ding people for the red flag stuff, that kind of stuff, character stuff. But I mean, that was on the field for display, and you can't unsee that, right? So
there was beef. There was beef, but there were some things that were within Boutte's control that got away from him as well. There's some off the field concerns there, and it was a bit of a train wreck. It was a bit of a train wreck for Boutte in 2022. You were going to weigh in on that, Headley.
No, I was going to echo, what both of you guys are saying, because, Boutte, he graded out well for me. I actually took him off my board. It was too much, man. It was too much. Not only in season, even after the season.
Right.
I don't know if you wasn't prepared for those athletic testing numbers, but he didn't test well at all, man. On the tape, it looks different, but it just your work ethic is coming into question. You never want to question somebody's work ethic, but it's a question mark, man. It's a question mark with Boutte.
Yeah. D-Kid, he was supposed to be the next guy, man.
Yep.
He was supposed to be the next guy. I think I don't know if it was OBJ's numbers, but it was the 7, if I'm not mistaken. The 7 is the big deal at LSU. So
Fournette and the boys.
Man. Yeah, man. Oh, DK came up with another one here.
Trey Palmer.
Trey Palmer. Yeah.
I think Palmer will be available to you a little bit later, though. I think he goes day 3. Maybe that speed pushes him into day 2, but
4
I
3
think he
3.
might be available day 3 potentially. We'll see. We'll ultimately see how it plays out. All right. That's going to do it for the receivers.